number 10, Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick, the star of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, is actually one of those celebrities who've actually killed someone. He seems like such a genuinely good person, so when you find out that he's actually got a dark secret, it can be quite surprising. In 1987, Matthew and his then girlfriend Jennifer Grey were driving down a road in Northern Ireland after filming Ferris Bueller, and Matthew was driving in the wrong lane and into oncoming traffic. Well, no one knows why he was in the wrong lane or how he got there, but he ended up getting into a head-on collision with another car, killing the two women inside. After spending about a month in hospital, he not only got away with his life, but also the crash. Instead of facing jail time for which he would have served a 5-year sentence, he was instead charged with careless driving and was given a $175 fine. The family of those who were killed in the accident have said that they have no hard feelings about Matthew having gotten away with the crime, because now he has to live with this guilt for the rest of his life. At number 9, Caitlyn Jenner. Here's another celebrity who has a dark past of having been involved in a fatal car crash. Caitlyn Jenner was involved in a 4-car crash in LA that ended with one person losing their life. According to sources, what happened was Caitlyn was driving on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu when she hit the back of a 69-year-old woman's car. The impact sent the woman's car into oncoming traffic, where she was hit again by another driver. The woman, Kimberly Howe, died at the scene. After further investigations into the crash, it was found that Caitlyn was not speeding in this case and was actually traveling slower than Howe. Caitlyn failed to brake in time to avoid the collision with the other car, and this is what caused the following accident. After deliberations, it was determined that Caitlyn would be cleared of the charges against her, as the prosecutor could not determine that Caitlyn was responsible for the crash. Do you think that Caitlyn should have seen more consequences for her involvement in the crash? Let me know down in the comments. But before I continue on with the video, I just want to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far. It really helps the channel out, so go smash that like button. At number 8, Josh Peck. If you were a fan of Drake and Josh in the past, this might break your heart a little. It seems like Josh Peck and Drake Bell are not the brothers that they used to be after some drama occurred surrounding the guest list of Josh's 2017 wedding. It all started when Drake tweeted about having not been invited to the wedding, where he said, quote, "When you're not invited to the wedding, the message is clear," end quote. Drake followed up this tweet saying, quote, "Loyalty is key, always remember where you came from," and ended his little Twitter rant by saying, quote, "True colors have come out this day, message is loud and clear, ties are officially cut, I'll miss you, brother," end quote. Seems like Drake was pretty butthurt about this, but what did Josh have to say about it? Well, it turns out that the reason why Drake wasn't invited to the wedding was because he had neglected to congratulate Josh on his engagement. Understandable, I guess. The two ended up patching things up after some time had passed, but there was a time where Drake and Josh were at odds with each other, and this story sort of flew under the radar. So here's to the kids who grew up watching Drake and Josh. I'm keeping you guys updated. At number 7, Jerry Seinfeld. Did anyone else know that Jerry Seinfeld dated an 18-year-old when he was almost 40? Because I didn't, and it seemed like this story had totally flown under the radar. Until now, that is. But yes, you heard me correctly, Jerry Seinfeld dated an 18-year-old when he was 39. This was a thing back in 1993, where Jerry told sources that one day while in Central Park, he laid eyes on what he called the most wonderful girl in the world. He went to talk to her and exchanged numbers with the then 17-year-old. The girl, Shoshana Lonstein, was still in high school at the time of meeting the actor. When asked about their obvious age difference, Jerry said, quote, "I didn't realize she was so young. This is the only girl I ever went out with that was that young. I wasn't dating her. We just went to a restaurant and that was it." Over the next few months after Shoshana turned 18, the two were dating low-key. The tabloids saw him out with several women, including Shoshana, during this time, but they couldn't get over the age difference. Obviously, they're no longer together, but it was a total scandal at the time. At number 6, Mark Wahlberg. This one is quite a doozy, and you know, you wouldn't really expect a story like this to involve Mark Wahlberg, but yet, here we are. Apparently, Mark here has a history of racially motivated attacks, and this is one of the dark secrets that have remained hidden from people for quite some time. In 1986, Mark allegedly threw stones and shouted racial slurs at a group of black kids, and continued harassing them until someone had to step in and save them. On top of that, he continued his tyranny on the neighborhood's black kids as he harassed another group of kids the following day, gathering a group of white men and shouting and throwing rocks at the kids. A few years later, in 1988, Mark was involved in an incident where he yelled offensive things at a pair of Vietnamese men and hit one of the men over the head with a wooden stick, causing him to fall unconscious and punch the other man in the eye. He got away with all of his actions, from the kids to the Vietnamese men, and a lot of people don't know about this, so here you go guys, another celebrity scandal. At number 5, Mitt Romney. I have a story about United States Senator Mitt Romney. Yeah, sure, he's not a Hollywood celebrity, but he ran against Obama in the 2012 presidential election, and Obama is a celebrity to me, so he's a celebrity by proxy. Just go with it. Besides, you want to hear this story. Anyway, back in 1983, Mitt Romney and his family were packing up their family car as they were on their way to their cottage in Ontario. Well, the whole family was coming, including their dog Seamus, but unfortunately, Seamus wasn't fitting in the car, and so to rectify this problem, Mitt put the pup in his crate and tied the crate to the roof of his car. I really wish I was joking, but I'm not. The family started driving, but soon Seamus got an upset tummy because he was so freaked out about being on the roof of the car, and so he started making some chocolate syrup, if you catch my drift, and it started dripping down the sides of the car. Mitt then pulled over, hosed the crate and car down, and continued to drive to Canada. This story didn't break until years later in 2006, and even still, it's been completely buried. This is such a horrible thing to do to your pet. If you wouldn't treat your child like this, don't do that to an animal. Period. At number 4, David DeLuise. His name might not click at first, but his face sure will. David DeLuise is the actor who played Jerry Russo in Wizards of Waverly Place on the Disney Channel. So you might be wondering what's so scandalous that he could make it onto this list. Well, dear viewer, you're about to be so shocked. In 2018, David was the unfortunate victim of a leak, and not the leaky faucet kind. This actor was hacked and his explicit photos began circling the internet. Luckily, his fans came to his aid to show him support and to bury the images online, but it's the internet and these things live online forever. Even former Disney co-star Selena Gomez had something to say about the leak, saying that she felt embarrassed for David and saddened that someone wanted to invade his privacy the way that they did. As someone who's been the victim of leaks and broken privacy herself, she can sympathize with David, but oh boy, was that a scandal. I can't believe I didn't know about this until now. At number 3, Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence got herself into some hot water after she was called out for being disrespectful to Hawaiian culture. Back in 2012, while shooting for the sequel to the Hunger Games film Catching Fire in Hawaii, she filmed a number of scenes in a wetsuit, and being in one for so long, she said that her butt got really itchy, and as one would do, she scratched the itch. However, instead of using her hand to scratch, she found an alternative. A rock. What's so problematic about this, you ask? Well, the rocks that she was using are seen as sacred by the Hawaiian people. In an interview where she talked about her butt-scratching incident, Jennifer said, quote, "There were sacred rocks. I don't know, they were ancestors, who knows. They were sacred, and you're not supposed to sit on them because you're not supposed to expose your genitalia to them." She went on to say that while scratching herself on the rocks, one of them came loose and prompted a landslide, saying, quote, "And all the Hawaiians were like, oh my god, it's the curse," and I'm in the corner going, "I'm your curse, I wedged it loose with my ass." Fans were not happy with the actress and her disrespect from Hawaiian culture, and so she got some heat from the incident. At number 2, Lindsay Lohan. In 2018, Lindsay Lohan started trending on Twitter in the middle of the night, and it was for a pretty wild reason. Basically what happened was Lindsay went live on Instagram while in Moscow, and she came across some people who she said were Syrian refugees. While live, she filmed the family and told them that she wanted to help them by getting them a hotel and food and letting them watch TV. She told them, quote, "I want you to tell America what you need and I will get it for you," end quote. She then turned to the kid that the family had with them and said that she was going to take him for the night so that she could help him, telling the family that they should not have their child being treated like this, sleeping on the floor, and said to the family that she would bring him back tomorrow. She then starts telling the kid to run away, trying to get him to leave his family and come with her. This whole time she's trying to convince this family to let her buy them a hotel room, and sort of starts getting frustrated when they don't go with her. As Lindsay keeps trying to take the kid, the child's mom gets up and punches her. She tells her live chat that she was in shock and that those people were trafficking and that all she wanted to do was help. Online, people were upset for Lindsay for, quote, being a white savior, and instead of coming across as a good person trying to help, she was instead seen as offensive. At number 1, O.J. Simpson. After being acquitted of the 1994 murder of his ex-wife, O.J. Simpson thought it was a bright idea to write a book. Not just any kind of book though, one that was a supposed fictional retelling of the crimes that he was accused of, but from the point of view of if he had really done it. Not only was it insensitive to the victims and their families, it also made people think that he was really guilty of the crimes because of the details of the book. It was almost incriminating. The book, called If I Did It, was supposed to get a TV adaptation as well, but it was all scrapped after the backlash that he and his ghostwriter got became too much. It was incredibly surprising to me, and I don't know how other people did not know about this, so I had to include it on this list. Can you believe it? At number 10, Katy Perry. One person that you don't often think about having a scandal is Katy Perry. I mean, yeah, she's had some beefs here and there, but nothing too major, right? Well, I mean, she did have a pretty big beef with some nuns, and it was kind of a big deal. Back in 2015, Katy was in a feud with a group of nuns that turned into a legal battle because they just didn't like her. Let me explain. Katy was trying to buy the Sisters of the Most Holy and Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary's aging convent in LA for $14.5 million. She gave her offer to the Los Angeles Archdiocese in order to purchase the property, but when the nuns caught wind of this transaction, they were like, heck no, and went behind the Archdiocese back to sell the property to a different buyer. They did this because they didn't like what they saw in Katy's music videos and they thought it was too inappropriate. They ended up selling the property for less than Katy offered. The nuns got into some pretty big trouble with the Archdiocese, and he even ended up taking the matter to court and even accused the buyer of taking advantage of the nuns. They ended up winning the property back so that Katy could still buy it. She got brought into all of this mess because Katy wasn't wholesome enough for the nuns. But I mean, have you seen Katy? She's a doll. I'd sell her anything. At number 9, Jude Law. You may know Jude Law from films like Sherlock Holmes, Fantastic Beasts, and The Young Pope, but you might not know about Jude's streak as a Hollywood heartbreaker. Jude was sort of known to have a number of partners, and he and his wife were rumored to have been swingers, someone who would swap partners from time to time. But there came a time where he seemingly left that life behind and entered into a new relationship with actress Sienna Miller. Things were fine, and they even got engaged until a cheating scandal erupted that blew everything out of the water. In 2006, a woman named Daisy Wright, who was the nanny for Jude's children, came forward about an alleged affair that she'd been having with Jude. She did an interview with the Sunday Mirror, a British news publication, and went in depth about her relationship with the actor, sharing every juicy detail. She even shared details about their passionate lovemaking and went on to say that Jude was, quote, a great lover who knows how to satisfy a woman. People couldn't believe what was happening, having Jude exposed like that, but in a surprise turn, Jude actually owned up to his actions. He came forward and came clean about everything, making a public apology to his then fiance. It was scandalous, but very few people actually know about this. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps us out a lot. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow is known for being a little odd. Her brand Goop has garnered a few haters because of how strange and unorthodox it is. She's advertised a number of strange health and beauty products on her site that have people scratching their heads, and her must-have list nearly always includes products that are much too expensive for normal people to afford. Really, the consensus is that Goop is weird, and it's actually gotten her into some legal trouble in the past. In 2018, Gwyneth was faced with a lawsuit against Goop filed by the California Food, Drug, and Medical Device Task Force over 3 products that were sold from the Goop website. The $66 jade eggs, $55 rose quartz eggs that were advertised to benefit women's health down there, and the flower essence blend that was advertised to, quote, assist in clearing of guilt, shame, and self-criticism and blame. After being taken to court, Gwyneth settled and was ordered to pay $145,000 and reimburse customers who bought those 3 products, as well as refrain from advertising products that don't actually have any benefits. At number 7, Cat Williams. You don't always hear about celebrities having Karen moments, but when they do, oh boy, is it entertaining. In April 2016, comedian Cat Williams had a Karen moment, and it ended with him throwing a salt shaker at an employee. It all started when Cat had arrived at a restaurant with members of his family. When they got there, they started seating themselves, but were promptly told that they needed to move because the spot that they had chosen to sit at was already being reserved by another group. Cat then got into a heated argument with employees over the seating arrangement, and then that is where things escalated. He ended up throwing a salt shaker at a restaurant manager. Police were called after Kat threw the salt shaker, but before officers arrived, he had left the scene. He was later found at a Waffle House where he was arrested and charged with 1 count of battery. Now, I have no clue what was said during this altercation, but I do have a feeling that the most famous phrase of "do you know who I am" was uttered, and I can definitely bet money on it. At number 6, Nicolas Cage. There's nothing worse than getting exposed by a book. Well, I mean, there are worse things in life, but for a celebrity, bad press can be detrimental to your image. For Nicolas Cage, he was met with some pretty harsh accusations of dog napping from actress Kathleen Turner, as she wrote in her 2008 memoir, Send Yourself Roses, that he, quote, came across a chihuahua that he liked and stuck it in his jacket. Like I said, bad press can do some serious damage to a celebrity's career, and Nick knew this, so upon finding out about her accusation, he promptly sued her for defamation, libel, and slander. Luckily for him, Nick came out on top and won his case, and in return, Kathleen had to issue an apology to him and paid his legal fees and issued a donation to a charity of his choosing. He chose the National Adult Protective Services Foundation, a charity that benefits victims of elder abuse. I really like how he made her donate to a charity and pay it forward rather than just giving him a bunch of money. It's a nicer thing to do. At number 5, Sean Combs. Celebrities get sued by random people for random things all the time. Most times, they don't even get reported on because they're just so menial, but this story was so wild that it just had to be shared. Sean Combs, aka Diddy, faced a lawsuit in 2011 from a woman who made a number of wild claims against him. She sued the rapper for $1 trillion because she claimed that he was her child's father and that he never paid her child support, and that he once stole a poker chip from her that was worth, quote, 100 zillions of dollars. I cannot make this stuff up. Of the $1 trillion that she was suing for, she claimed that $900 billion was for unpaid child support payments and the rest was for emotional damages. On top of that, she submitted handwritten legal claims that claimed that he had physically hurt her and her kids and that he was the one behind the tragic 9/11 attacks. This lawsuit really didn't go anywhere, but it did get a court date, so it's really more than I was expecting. She also applied for a restraining order against Diddy, but that was denied. This was all so crazy, so I wonder how many people actually knew about this. At number 4, George Lopez. It's not every day that you see a big Hollywood star making headlines in Canada. Really, our news headlines are about maple syrup and igloos and the best way to prepare your moose for winter. I'm kidding, but hearing about celebrities getting into shenanigans in the Great White North isn't something that you hear often. Back in 2014, George Lopez was performing a comedy show at a casino in Windsor, Ontario, and he got a little too enamored with that good old Canadian hospitality because he ended up getting pretty tipsy. After having performed his stand-up routine, he had some celebratory drinks at the casino and got a little carried away. George ended up flat on the floor after drinking to excess and passing out in the casino. Police were called and took him into custody for the night, though no charges were laid. Later on, he poked fun at his intoxication, saying that he was headed to his room that night, but just, quote, missed it by 35 floors. George reportedly gave up drinking after that night. At number 3, Bruno Mars. These days, we don't hear much about Bruno Mars, but there was a time when he faced some pretty big trouble and not everyone knows about it. Back in 2010, Bruno was arrested in Las Vegas after a show for suspected possession of that good old no-no-snow. According to the police report, Bruno was arrested after hotel security discovered that the singer was in possession of illegal narcotics and he was detained. It was later found that he had 2.6 grams of no-no-snow on him. In order to avoid jail time, Bruno ended up taking a plea deal, paying a fine, and serving 1 year probation. I was surprised to find this out about Bruno because he seemed so genuine, but now I don't know what to believe. At number 2, Mila Kunis. I have a few more wild celebrity lawsuits that I want to share with you because more people need to know about this. Some of you may recall that actress Mila Kunis is from the Ukraine. Well, when she was a kid, she apparently had a friend who had a pet chicken. Well, one day this chicken just disappeared and Mila was blamed for its disappearance. Well, years later, after Mila became a successful actress, Christina Caro, Mila's childhood friend, ended up moving to America to pursue her dream of becoming a singer, but to her surprise, she moved to an area that was pretty close to where Mila was living. This brought up some deep-rooted emotions for Christina because she suddenly remembered her poor lost chicken and she ended up seeking therapy to help her cope. Christina also issued a lawsuit against Mila for having allegedly stolen her pet chicken from years ago and was looking to receive money to cover her therapy bills. Christina alleged that this trauma prevented her from, quote, pursuing the American dream. Later, it was alleged that this was all just a publicity stunt to promote her song, but I really don't know how well that worked for her. Still, the mystery as to what happened to the chicken remains unsolved. And finally, at number 1, Beyonce. I saved the best one for last. I don't know how many people have heard of this, so please tell me down in the comments if you've heard of this story. This seems to be a little obscure, so just let me know. Anyways, Beyonce is one of the biggest names in music, as we all know. I mean, she didn't earn the title of Queen Bee for nothing. She's faced a number of wild lawsuits in the past, including one where someone claimed to have been the surrogate for Beyonce's daughter Blue Ivy. But one story in particular takes the cake, and not enough people know about it. Beyonce was once sued by one of her former drummers for allegedly using extreme witchcraft to ruin her life. The drummer, a woman by the name of Kimberly Thompson, claimed that the singer used magic spells on her, killed her pet cat, cursed her relationships, and made her lose out on money and jobs. She also claimed that Beyonce stole her home, property, computer, and hard drives, and that she tapped her phone as well. There's no proof that Beyonce ever did any of these things, but if she really did use magic, how would she have left evidence? Smart. At number 10, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan is known to be kind of a diva. It's probably all chalked up to the fact that she became such a big Hollywood star at such a young age, but either way, she's got some diva attitude. It's because of this diva attitude that I'm not surprised that she's sued people for ridiculous claims, because why wouldn't she? In 2010, Lindsay issued a lawsuit against E-Trade for $100 million over their company's Super Bowl ad because she claimed that they, quote, used her name and characterization without her permission. In the ad, it basically follows a conversation between two babies, with one of them asking if they're bailing on their plans to hang out with, quote, that milkaholic Lindsay. Lindsay claimed that this ad was trying to be a parody on her life as well as her documented struggles with alcoholism. She also claimed that this ad was about her because they used her name and she is, quote, widely recognized by just her first name, like Cher or Madonna. The lawsuit was eventually settled in court, but very few people actually know that this legal matter was ever a real thing. At number 9, Jamie Oliver. Celebrity chefs are celebrities too, and just like any other big name person, they're subject to scandal. Their scrutiny can be for a number of things because with these celebrities, the possibilities are endless. With celebrity chef Jamie Oliver, he faced some scrutiny and widespread hate from a whole nation because they were offended by his food, and it was pretty wild. Not everyone can unite a nation, but when Jamie Oliver did it in 2014, it was fueled by food and anger. In October 2014, Jamie took a recipe for jollof rice, a West African dish that is described as the heart and soul of the nation, and reinvented it. Apparently, this reinvention didn't look anything like the original dish, and people were really mad about it. This recipe post then received thousands of angry comments from African food bloggers saying that not only is this recipe a disgrace to the culture, but it also skewed the way African culture and cuisine is seen and represented in the rest of the world. People saw this as another instance of, quote, Europe taking African culture and doing what they want with it. This actually wasn't the first or last time Jamie has experienced recipe outrage like this, as 2 years after this scandal, Jamie angered people from Spain for his take on paella, saying that he even received death threats for that scandal. I think the takeaway from this scandal is to stick to the source material. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also check out my gaming channel, Viper Girl, if you're looking for some more fun content to enjoy. I've got a fun series going on over there, so go check them out and subscribe while you're at it. At number 8, Simon Cowell. Speaking of chefs, this next scandal involving Simon Cowell also involves another chef, but at least this one isn't offending entire nations with their cooking. In 2009, a personal chef issued a lawsuit against Simon Cowell and his ex-girlfriend Terry Seymour because she claimed that they stole her shoes. The chef said that the couple failed to return her shoes after they asked her to remove them when she entered their home for an interview. These were special shoes because they had special $500 orthopedic insoles, and she really wanted them back. The chef in her $661 lawsuit claimed that she had made several attempts to retrieve her shoes, each time being unsuccessful. She even drove all the way back to Simon and Terry's house, where Terry's assistant helped to look for them. The lawsuit was ultimately settled and ended with Simon paying court fees, the gas money owed to the chef for driving to their house, and finally returning the shoes. Why he stole them, I have no idea, but at least the chef got them back in the end. At number 7, 50 Cent. Here's another crazy lawsuit scandal that you might not have heard of. Rapper 50 Cent issued a lawsuit against Taco Bell back in 2008. He sued the fast food chain for $4 million because he claimed that the restaurant used his name for advertising purposes without his consent. Taco Bell had thought of a new ad campaign, issuing a press release to ask 50 Cent to change his name to 79 cent, 89 cent, or 99 cent for a day to promote their low price menu, and then wrap his order at a Taco Bell. The company said that if he did that, then they'd donate $10,000 to a charity of his choice. Well, instead of getting a publicity campaign, they got a lawsuit instead after the rapper found out about Taco Bell's campaign because people were calling him a sellout for taking this apparent endorsement. He took the company to court and won, receiving an undisclosed settlement. This wasn't the first time 50 Cent had sued a company over similar claims. A year prior to this scandal, 50 Cent sued an internet ad company for using his likeness without his permission, so people say that Taco Bell should have known better. Someone from the ad department definitely got fired after that one. At number 6, Jay-Z. Jay-Z has had his ups and downs in the media, but he's also had a few scandals here and there, from beefs to fights and everything in between, but there's one scandal that you might not have heard of and involves a lawsuit. Rappers and singers don't always write their own music, though many may assume it's all from the heart. Sometimes it is from other people's brains, but most times other people's brains receive their credit for what they've written. In the case of Jeffrey Philston, that credit never came, but it wasn't exactly deserved either. The Florida man issued a $90 million lawsuit against Jay-Z because he claimed that he had been his ghostwriter for years, but he never received any credit or monetary compensation. Jeffrey had written to the rapper while in jail and allegedly sent him some lyrics. Jeffrey then said that the lyrics he wrote for the rapper ended up in the song Watch the Crown, and Jay-Z allegedly sent Jeff a letter saying, quote, "You gave me the most help in this industry, but I refuse to pay you. I know that you are thinking I am a millionaire, but that's just how it is. I've conned you," end quote. The man obviously didn't receive his $90 million lawsuit, but he did hold a grudge against the rapper. At number 5, Benicio del Toro. This scandal seemed to have been a shock to a lot of people because of how unexpected and random it was. News broke last year about actor Benicio del Toro and his connection to Rod Stewart's daughter Kimberly. The two apparently had a one-night stand that then resulted in Kim getting pregnant with Benicio's child. This came as a shock to a surprising number of people because they became a couple that no one was expecting. I can't say I know much about either of them, but people seem to be taken aback by this baby scandal because it was just so random. So I had to include it on this list. Let me know down in the comments if you knew about this and if it surprised you. At number 4, Miley Cyrus. Coming in hot with another scandal, we have Miley Cyrus's $4 billion lawsuit. Yes, that is right, I said billion. In 2009, a woman in Los Angeles issued a lawsuit against Miley because of a racist photo that had been circulating around the internet. The photo showed Miley and a group of other people posing for the photo, pulling back their eyelids, and the woman suing Miley, Lucy Kim, issued a class action lawsuit against the singer, demanding that she pay $4,000 to every Asian Pacific Islander in Los Angeles County to compensate them for the harm they suffered by seeing the photo, because she claimed that the picture, quote, violated the civil rights of Asian Pacific Islanders. Miley claimed that the photo in question was taken out of context and issued an apology. Ultimately, the judge threw out the case, but Miley's legal team did request that Lucy not have to pay her legal fees because the court argued that her lawsuit wasn't exactly without merit. At number 3, Elizabeth Taylor. Imagine having a cheating scandal that is so messy and turbulent that the Pope has to step in. Sounds wild, but this actually happened with Elizabeth Taylor back in the day. Elizabeth Taylor married 7 times in her life, but during this time she had also entered into a few affairs as well. After starring in the film Cleopatra in Rome, Elizabeth found herself in love with Richard Burton. Both of them were already married, but this didn't stop them from pursuing each other and eventually divorcing their respective partners. This relationship was scandalous because they just couldn't get enough of each other. Paparazzi were all over this story and eventually it reached the Vatican. Since the movie that Elizabeth and Richard were working on was set in Rome, which surrounds Vatican City, the Vatican was not happy about this affair or their steamy connection, and they tore the actress apart in one of their newspapers. Even the Pope couldn't stop their love for each other, and Elizabeth and Richard got married, but it was still quite the scandal, and to hear that the Vatican was involved just makes it that much juicier. At number 2, Charlie Chaplin. I think everybody is familiar with Charlie Chaplin, right? The famous silent movie star from the early days of Hollywood. Well, he faced a lot of scandals back in his day, but one that is the most surprising surrounds how he got banned from the US. After the events of World War II, the fear of communism in America started to heighten. Specifically, in the early 50s, people were told to stay vigilant about any signs of communism from basically everyone and everything. Charlie Chaplin ended up on the list of people to fear after it was suggested that he was a communist. Though he had lived and worked in the US for about 40 years, he became a target of the Un-American Activities Committee and was put on an FBI blacklist in 1948, preventing him from working in Hollywood. A few years later, in 1952, when he sailed to Britain on holiday, he got word that if he were to return to the US, he would be arrested. After that, he stayed away for good. The only time he ever went back to the US was in 1972 to pick up an honorary Oscar award. And finally, at number 1, John Lennon. The Beatles were a huge hit at the height of their fame, but members of the band also faced scandal, as every celebrity does. John Lennon had his share of controversies, but one that is pretty surprising and that not many people know about is about how he once said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. In 1966, John Lennon did an interview where he was asked all sorts of questions like how he lives, his interests, and so on, but his comments on Christianity was where things got heated. In the profile he said, quote, "Christianity will go, it will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I'm right and will be proved right. We are more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity. Jesus was alright, but his disciples were thick and ordinary. It's them twisting it that ruins it for me." Now, when this profile was first released in UK, no one thought anything of his comments on Christianity, but when the article was republished worldwide a few months later, things got messy when it hit the US. A radio station in Alabama got hold of John's comments and proposed a ban on the Beatles, refusing to play their music and smashing their records. This anti-Beatles mindset began to spread further, angering more people until eventually Lennon apologized and things died down, making for a chaotic few months.
So in at number 10, we have Justin Bieber accused of being a dad. Way back when Justin Bieber was only 17, he was accused of being a father to a child. Mariah Yeater, who was 20 at the time she gave birth, claims that she and Justin hooked up backstage at his concert, and it was his first time, so they didn't use protection. And from that brief hookup, she ended up getting pregnant. She then submitted a paternity lawsuit, which asked him to take a paternity test and provide support if he was the father. Bieber responded by tweeting out, quote, "So I'm gonna ignore the rumors and focus on what is real, an opportunity to help by doing what I love. Judge me on my music. Love y'all." And since she claims that she was 19 and Justin was 16 at the time, by filing the lawsuit, she could incriminate herself for another crime of sleeping with an underage person. Justin agreed to take the test, but before he did, she dropped the suit. Justin then released a song called Maria, where the lyrics say, quote, "That ain't my baby, that ain't my girl. And why are you trying to lie, girl, when I ain't never met you at all?" And at number 9, Lindsay Lohan punched on live. This one is really strange, and I completely forgot about it until now. But Lindsay Lohan actually got punched by a homeless woman on Instagram Live because Lohan was trying to take her child. Basically, Lohan was in Moscow, and she hopped out of her car to talk to a homeless family while on Instagram Live, saying in that live, quote, "Hey everyone, I just want to show you a family that I met, a Syrian refugee family that I'm really worried about. They really need help." Then at one point, she tried to get the whole family to come in the car with her, but they wouldn't go. Then as a last-ditch effort, she tried to only take the kids. When asking them to come in the car with her, they walked away while she was literally running after them. Then after following the family for just way too long, still on live, mind you, she's like running after people on Instagram Live, the mom turned around and hit her straight in the face. Then of course, the live ended. And I get she was trying to help them, but like truly, how else was that supposed to end? And at number 8, Mariah Carey shades J-Lo. Mariah Carey and J-Lo have a long and nasty feud stemming from Carey's ex-husband, record executive Tommy Mottola, with Mottola using J-Lo as his weapon to bring Mariah down. In just one of their many feuds, Mariah said she would, quote, "rather be on stage with a pig than duet with Jennifer Lopez." The feud all started when J-Lo sampled 2 of Mariah's songs from her Glitter soundtrack, putting almost the exact same song on her own album, with an insider on Glitter talking about how paranoid Mariah was of people getting a hold of the music before the release date. And when the album was released, the paranoia was understood. Then there was another time when Mariah was asked about J-Lo and simply replied, quote, "I don't know her." Then the last blow was when Mariah was told Jennifer had 8 hours of sleep a night, and she responded, quote, "If I had the luxury of not actually having to sing my own songs, I do that too." And oh my, we just love a messy queen. And to give you some more background on all of that, J-Lo is actually well known for blatantly stealing samples from other artists, and sometimes even the singer's voice on J-Lo's song. So literally using the person that was singing in the sample on J-Lo's music that she released under her own name, with J-Lo blatantly not singing a lot of her own songs. And if you look back to her older ones and really listen hard, you can kind of tell it's definitely not her singing. And at number 7, David Dominic DeLuise exposed. Back in 2018, the dad from Wizards of Waverly Place was hacked and his lewd photos were released online. And obviously that's just one scandal in itself because they were a little odd. But things got even worse for the actor when a DM convo was leaked between him and a fan where she tried to ask him about the photos, and while doing so he gets super creepy and basically asks her for some photos, if you know what I mean. And the amount of messages he sent this girl is insane. Honestly, very happy he got exposed. And at number 6, Milli Vanilli exposed. This This is one that's a little too old for me to remember, but it was such a huge scandal back in the day that it's still considered music's biggest hoax. And it just proves how fake the music business can be. Milli Vanilli was one of the hottest groups ever, rising to fame lightning fast with the song Girl You Know It's True. But in 1989, while performing at a music festival, their backup track kind of messed up and they were exposed for lip syncing. In the weeks that followed, the group admitted that they did not sing their own songs, and they had been lip syncing the whole time. They even had to give back their Grammy Award for Best New Artist that they had won earlier. After all was said and done, the pair were in bad shape. Fab ended up getting better and sobering up, but Rob spiraled out of control and ended up passing away at the age of 33 because of an accidental OD. The pair maintained that they were duped by the label and would not have gone on with the hoax if they hadn't signed on the dotted line. Halfway number 5, Camilla Gate. Tampon Gate, aka Camilla Gate, was an incredibly juicy scandal that went down in about 1993 when a transcript of a call between Prince Charles and his then mistress Camilla Parker Bowles was published. The 6-minute call took place in 1983 when Charles was still married to Princess Diana and Camilla was still married to Andrew Parker Bowles. And even though the whole call was really uncomfortable, the worst part was when Charles said he wished that he could be a tampon. Yikes. I really don't know what they're doing, across the pond, but they're clearly into some weird shit over there. And at number 4, Natalie Portman ended a marriage. This one is hilariously ridiculous. But allegedly, writer Jonathan Safran Foer left his wife of 10 years because he was emailing Natalie Portman and felt that there was a deeper connection. Portman was a fan of the writers, and they had been emailing ever since he released his first book, Everything is Illuminated, in 2002. Then they kept emailing 4 years after, and Portman even signed on to do a project with him. And over that time, he decided they were totally an item. And apparently he told his wife, novelist Nicole Krauss, that he was in love with a beautiful intellectual movie star and left her for Portman, even though him and Portman had literally never had a conversation whatsoever about what their relationship was. And apparently later on, when Foer approached her about the whole thing and asked to be with Portman, Portman did not feel the same way. I mean, what a shock. She was also married at the time, so like. Number 3, Lenny Kravitz on stage mishap. Lenny Kravitz had quite the scandal back in 2015, and while he was performing in Sweden, he was wearing some incredibly tight leather pants in some ridiculous heat, and when he crouched down at one point, his pants completely ripped, and that usually wouldn't be that big of a deal, but he wasn't wearing underwear, so more was revealed than he probably would have hoped. Kravitz rushed off stage once he became aware of the fact that his junk was completely exposed, coming back shortly after in another pair of leather pants. I guess the first mishap wasn't enough of a warning for him, but he's committed to his outfits, and honestly I have nothing but respect for that. And at number 2, Winona Ryder shoplifting. Another legendary moment that shook Hollywood was when movie star Winona Ryder was convicted of shoplifting $5,000 worth of designer clothes from Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills in December of 2001. For punishment, she was sentenced to 3 years supervised probation, ordered to do 480 hours of community service, and fined a total of $2,700, as well as pay back the stolen items and go for counseling. But Winona has talked about that incident since then, with her saying that the incident was her way of telling the world that she needed a break to get out of Hollywood to pursue other things. With her saying in an interview, quote, "But it allowed me time that I really needed, where I went back to San Francisco and got back into things that I just had other interests, frankly." In at number 1, Mitt Romney put his dog on their car roof. One of the biggest scandals against presidential candidate Mitt Romney was an incident in 1983 where he strapped his dog's kennel to the roof of his car for a 12-hour road trip to Canada because the dog had diarrhea. The incident created such bad press for Romney, a super PAC was created just for that issue. Mitt and his wife talked about the issue in an interview with Diane Sawyer, where his wife responded to the issue by saying, quote, "It was to me a kinder thing to bring him along than to leave him in the kennel for 2 weeks." And in the interview, instead of apologizing and admitting that it was wrong, they played it off like it was no biggie. The comments created Facebook campaigns like, quote, "Dogs Against Romney," who were adamant about getting Romney to recognize why what he did was wrong.